Hello everyone, back tuning into today's second video. We're going to have a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days. For today's second video, that's going to take us to around the 15th of November, so heading into the middle part of the month with week 10 day video updates. Now, we'll be able to extend out beyond that with the extended ECM ensembles and also the extended GFS. They run to around a couple of weeks. Have a look at CFSB2 at the end of the video for the next 4 weeks, which takes us to the beginning of December. But talking of that, the ECMWF 30-day look ahead has just been released, and that's looking at the temperature and precipitation anomalies across Europe and the UK for the next 4 weeks, and it does get us to the first day of December. So have a look at that and see what's expected in the next 4 weeks. We're going to start this video in the stratosphere. Now, very, very early days, only the 5th of November, but we are already starting to see a few interesting signals in terms of the temperature at 10 HPA in the stratosphere over the North Pole. So just to start us off, this is how things are looking in the North Pole at the moment in terms of the temperature at 10 HPA over top of the pole. This is from the JMA. So the grey line here is the trend, of course, a cooling time of year, the temperature both in the stratosphere and in the troposphere and down on the surface. Should be cooling down at this point of the year in the northern hemisphere as the sun has shifted off into the southern hemisphere. So generally the stratospheric temperature at 10 HPA is around its coldest somewhere around the end of the year and into the new year. The black line shows where we currently are with the temperature at 10 HPA. So this is where we are right now. We're very close to, or just a little bit under average, around minus 70 degrees. So we're not that far from average, but we are a little bit colder than average in terms of the temperature at 10 HPA. It did go a little bit more under average a couple of weeks ago, actually. It's kind of levelled off a little bit now. But rather cold than average. You go a bit lower down to 30 HPA, which is closer to the troposphere. Again, we see that the black line is a little bit under the grey line again. So it's cold on average. It's a little bit under minus 70 at 30 HPA. So it's a little bit colder than average at both 10 HPA and at 30 HPA. Not dramatically so, but certainly a few degrees under the long-term average. Now, this is from meteoseal.fr. This is the temperature forecast for 10 HPA in the stratosphere over North Pole for the next couple of weeks. So, starting off down the 5th of November. These blue colours, they are the cold temperatures that we've got to 10 HPA up there in the stratosphere in the North Pole, going down to around minus 72 or so, which of course is what we see. We go back here, that's roughly around where we are at the moment, somewhere around minus 70. So these blue colours are representing those cold temperatures at 10 HPA. Now, what we look for in winter is to get a sudden stratospheric warming, and they always look very dramatic on these charts, because when we have a sudden stratospheric warming, we will lift the temperature up by around 30, 40, sometimes 50 degrees in a matter of a few days. And the black line will do something like that. They always look really, really dramatic when they happen. And when they happen, when you get a sudden stratospheric warming, you can sometimes propagate that down into the troposphere. The bubble of warm air propagates down into the troposphere, and that can set up a blocking area of high pressure over the pole. And of course, a blocking area of high pressure reroute, pushing cold air out of the pole and down into the mid-latitudes. It's not a guarantee, though, a sudden stratospheric warming. It's not a guarantee of getting cold. We had one last winter around Christmas and New Year, and we didn't really get all that much cold from it. We did get a little bit cold weather in the second half of January 2019, but that was about it, and we didn't get any proper sort of high latitude blocking, not on our side of the pole anyway. Where the high pressure sits, of course, is always critical as to who's going to get the cold, because if one area of the northern hemisphere is on the cold side of blocking, another area will have to be on the warm side of blocking. So where the high sits is always a critical factor. Right, so that's how we're looking at the moment in terms of the temperature at 10 HPA over North Pole, all those blue colours. Let's see what the GFS is forecasting over the next couple of weeks. So, if anything in the next sort of 5 or 6 days, it gets even colder over the top of the North Pole. Temperatures going down close to around minus 76 there. And staying quite cold, really, around much of the North Pole in terms of temperature at 10 HPA up to the 13th of November. Notice it does get a little bit warmer in the northern part of the Atlantic at times, but we never infiltrate that into the North Pole. So up to around sort of 10 days out, it certainly looks like we keep those cold temperatures going in the stratosphere. But look what the GFS is doing right in its very extended range. We're up to the 17th of November now, 288 hours away, so we're a long way out, but we are beginning to see signs of a little bit of warming occurring over Siberia. And as we go along, that actually intensifies. We see the yellow and even orange colours beginning to appear then as we get up to around the 20th of November. So quite a significant warming of the stratosphere taking place over the Asian and Siberian side of the North Pole as we get through to the very extended range of the GFS. It's very extended range stuff, and of course these charts are unreliable. They are as unreliable as any other chart that you would look at 384 hours away. So it's by no means guaranteed that we will start to get this warming going across Asia and Siberia. But it's very early days to be seeing this within the extended GFS. Normally this is something that we focus on as we get into winter proper. We are still only in early November, so it's very, very early to be seeing signs of any kind of warming of the stratosphere. So just keep a very close eye on it. That is not a sudden stratospheric warming, by the way. The temperature there is not reaching the required sort of temperature of a sudden stratospheric warming. It is a significant warming of the stratosphere at 10 HPA, but it's a little bit under what I would classify as a sudden stratospheric warming. This is what a real sudden stratospheric warming looks like. This is from the 5th of January 2013, and on these charts you can see how much deeper the orange and red colours are there over Siberia and pushing into the North Pole. That was a very, very dramatic warming of the North Pole, but actually totally, let's see if we can find the chart, totally, where is it? It's just there. Sorry about this. So it's just there. That totally obliterated the polar vortex within a few days at its roots in the stratosphere. You can see how those blue colours are kind of being ripped apart, and we'll go a bit further on. Again, you see how those blue colours by the 9th of January 2013 kind of being pulled apart, ripped apart by those warm and average temperatures. That is a proper sudden stratospheric warming, and that's how it looks as it starts off over Siberia on the 5th of January 2013. So this is a significant warming, yes, of the stratosphere, and it's very, very early to see any kind of warmings of the stratosphere. And we'll just see where it goes. So this could be a signal as we go into December. We may have an early, genuine sudden stratospheric warming on our hands. But we'll just see how this develops over the next few days. We'll be keeping a close eye on these GFS charts, I'm quite sure. Right, coming back to weather for the next week, 10 days, these are the GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next couple of weeks. We're on at Willenhall today. So this is another suggested location for this section of video. If you'd like to have your local town or city featured in the in this part of videos, then do let us know through the comments at Gazovids, or you can email us at gazovids@gmail.com and ask us to feature your local town or city. Can't go down to the village level yet, I don't think, but we can show you your local town or city. This is near Walsall, I believe. So red line here is a 30-year upper air temperature average for Willenhall, and we're starting off quite close to average at the moment. In the next 24 hours, we're going to go pretty cold, and generally up to the middle part of November, it looks like the temperature is staying below average. So we are in for quite an extended spell of colder than average conditions. That will include night frost when the skies are clear, and for northern areas maybe some sleet or snow on high ground. Into the second half of the month, we perhaps see signs that the upper air temperatures are staging a little bit of a recovery, but that's extended range stuff. Definitely within the next week to 10 days, it does look pretty cold and unsettled as well. This just goes on, as it has done all autumn, further, or certainly since late September, further significant precipitation spikes telling us there will be more significant rain to come, plenty of wet weather on the way for the next week to 10 days at least. Temperature anomalies are looking like that from the 5th to the 13th of November. Colder than average for the UK and also for Ireland as well. Most parts of northern and western Europe are forecast to be cold than average. Look how much warmer than average it is, though, on the eastern and southeastern side of Europe. Temperature anomalies to the southern Russia, to the Black Sea, and then down towards the Balkans, up to 8 to 10 degrees below average. Conversely, Scandinavia is 8 to 10 degrees below average. And for the UK and Ireland, we're sort of around 2 to 4 degrees below average. It's going to be a cold week to come across many northern and western parts of Europe. Precipitation-wise, it's drier than average for much of Scandinavia, although it's wetter than average around the Baltic area. And of course, with such cold temperatures, any precipitation that is falling over Scandinavia will be falling as snow. Otherwise, we've got a bit of a mixed bag, but overall I think the same. But for UK and for Ireland, we see that central parts of UK anyway are slightly wetter than average. To the north and south of that, it's actually a little bit drier than average, but it looks like it's very variable with precipitation in the next week. That's how the GFS is looking for Friday. I'm going to have an area of low pressure close to the country on Friday, actually clearing away to our south and southeast. That will be allowing things to turn a little bit drier, but it will be colder at the end of the week again with winds, or it will be cold at the end of the week with winds in from the northeast. Then on Saturday, the next low is moving in off the Atlantic. That brings cloud and outbreaks of rain with it. That could turn to snow over high ground in the north. That low sort of sliding away to the southeast as we get this blocking area of high pressure setting up to the north. That could start to turn the winds into the east as that low pressure slips away from Sunday through to Monday. Then just keep areas of low pressure rotating around the UK through to next week. That will bring further outbreaks of rain, and this looks pretty dismal by the time we get through to next Wednesday, 13th of November. We've got the low pressure sitting over the UK and the north of France. High pressure continues to be blocking to the north. Winds are coming in from the east as well. That will be a cold easterly wind, probably not cold enough for snow, except on northern high ground. But with the cloud and rain and that easterly wind blowing in, I think it will feel pretty cold, raw and dismal through the middle part of next week. Heading up towards day 10, things then start to become slacker with the isobars, so we may start to generate some dense patches of mist and fog perhaps, and still a risk of overnight frost, I would have thought there, as we get up to the middle of November. In more extended range, we have a go at re-establishing a westerly flow, so signs that it turns a little bit milder there for a few days into the second half of the month, although by the time we get through to the end of this GFS run, which gets us to the 21st of November, signs that we're trying to raise heights around Greenland, actually. So if we could roll on any further, we would probably see this low pressure just here pushing through like that, and then open the door to cold northerly winds, something like that. Within the next 2 weeks, weather patterns are remaining, as we've been talking about in the videos over the past few days, remaining very unusual, quite abnormal things taking place within the atmosphere at the moment, and that's continuing for the next 10 days to 2 weeks. This is how the GM is looking. So again, that low pressure is clearing away on Friday, allowing us to turn drier and colder, but only for a few hours. And then the next low is rolling in on Saturday, bringing more heavy rain to much of the country over the weekend. Could be some hill snow across Scotland with that. Then that low clears away to our south. We get high pressure building to the northeast of the country and start to turn the wind into the east through the early part of next week. Again, because it's only the middle of November, this is not going to be a particularly cold easterly wind. It won't bring much in the way of snow, but it will be raw and it will be pretty grim, especially on eastern coastal areas. This is how things looking on Wednesday. Low pressure to our southeast, high pressures over Scandinavia, and we're bringing in wind from the east. And as we go into more extended range up to day 10 with this GEM run, it looks like we're going to have a go at re-establishing low pressure from off the Atlantic. So that could be setting up a bit of a battle actually by day 10. We've got low pressure up here, we've got high pressure over there. There's going to be a weather front associated with that, and it's a case of let battle commence really. Will it be the westerlies that win that, or will it be the easterlies that win that? And then we've got the ECMWF again. That looks rather cold and unsettled for the end of the week. So low pressure clears away to the southeast, and then another low moves in from Saturday through to Sunday. That's coming up against this area of high pressure sitting to our north and northeast. And as it comes up against it, it's stalling, allowing the low pressure and its weather front to go in that sort of direction. Could be snow associated with that over high ground in the north, otherwise just lots of cold rain. Through to the early part of next week, again, these low pressures are struggling to come up against this area of high pressure. That's how we look on Tuesday, 12th of November. Again, low pressure is to the west and north of the country, high pressure blocking over Scandinavia. I mean, a very significant area of low pressure starts to develop as we get through to the middle of next week. This is Wednesday, 13th of November. A deep low pressure around Germany, and we're starting to pull in a strong to gale force easterly wind. That low pressure over Germany will bring copious amounts of rain in from the east as well if it comes off. With a real drenching for eastern parts of the country. These are highly unusual and abnormal weather patterns that we're seeing here for the middle of November. That's how we look at day 10, which is Friday the 15th of November. The high pressure then is out to the northwest of the country, blocking things out. Low pressure becoming cut off close towards Spain and Portugal. So with low pressure down there, we're still bringing the wind in from the east. Again, it's not a particularly cold easterly wind, but it will certainly be raw, and it will certainly be pretty grim through, particularly the middle part of next week, I would have thought, with that rain. This is the precipitation forecast based on that ECM run from Meteo.com. Starting today with showers, particularly in the east. Things dry out overnight, but tomorrow we bring more wet weather in from off the Atlantic. That gives us quite a wet day across much of England and Wales on Thursday. Could be a little bit of hill snow associated with that over the Scottish mountains. That wet weather gets out of the way on Friday. Here comes the next weather system for Saturday, moving in from the Atlantic into cold air. As it hits the cold air, some of that rain turns to snow over Scotland and the far north England, particularly over high ground. Could actually be a bit of a dumping of snow for the Scottish mountains there on Saturday. Could be a little bit coming down to lower levels over Scotland. Further south, it's just cold rain through Saturday. And then into the early part of next week, well, staying quite showery, really, especially for western areas through the early part of the week. Then in comes that deluge from the east through the middle of next week. Look at all that rain piling in off the North Sea with this gale force easterly wind. A little bit of that could turn to snow over northern hills, but it's primarily just really heavy rain and gale force easterly winds, and that does look very, very wet and cold and miserable for the middle part of next week, I must say. And then as we get up towards day 10, things start to dry out then as the ridge builds out to the northwest. But it will still be cold with an increasing risk of night frost and fog. These are the options that are on the table within the ECM ensembles today for day 10. This is getting us to the 15th of November. This from the Icelandic Met Office. We have 22 members of the ECM ensembles with above average heights out to the northwest and below average heights to our south and southeast as well. If we can change the colour, there we go, below average heights down there, and winds are going to be coming in from a northeasterly direction, so cold and unsettled with those 22. 17 with a mid-Atlantic ridge, low pressure over to the south of the country. That would bring in pretty cold northerly winds. That would be unsettled too. And then 12 including the operational and the control run of the ECM, but build this ridge of above average heights out to the northwest with the below average heights starting to slip away to the south. And so that's settling things down, but it's still cold as it's still bringing winds from the north, east or the east. But it is settling things down, increasing risk of light frost and fog with that. In 2 weeks' time, these are the options that we've got. So 26 members of the east semicircles are building up a Scandinavian high with low pressure out to our south and west. Winds will be turning into the east. As we go further on into November, these easterlies are likely to get colder. So if we keep easterlies going into the second half of the month, this is for the 20th of November, remember, if we keep these easterlies going into the second half of the month, then they will get colder with time. So that might start to bring wintry showers to eastern areas, who knows. So we've got 15 members of the east semicircles with just a deep trough of low pressure over top of the country. That's going to be very unsettled and quite cool as well. And then 10 with a ridge through the country out into the Atlantic. Low pressure is up to the north. That's trying to get us back to something a little bit more typical for the time of year. We're trying to re-establish the westerlies perhaps, but that's inconclusive. I think overall the east semicircles are trending cold and unsettled even into the middle of even in the second half of November. Finally, the CFSV2 for the next 4 weeks. These are 500 millibar heights broken down into week periods. The first week period takes us from the 5th to the 11th of November. The coming week will be unsettled with below average heights over the UK, blocking around Greenland as well, and the jet stream is shoved southwards. So a cold and unsettled week to come. Then into week 2, which is the 12th to the 18th of November. Again, trough of low pressure over top of the country, blocking area of high pressure up over Greenland, and jet streams digging south as well. So that remains cold and unsettled into the second half of November. Week 3 is the 19th to 25th of November. Below average heights again over the top of the country, above average heights across western Russia and up into the Arctic. Flow of jets going something like that. Maybe a little bit less cold there. A little bit more of a southwesterly influence, still very unsettled. And then all changed for week 4. This is the 26th of November to 2nd of December. Above average heights building then to our south and southwest, with below average heights out to the northwest. Still quite unsettled, but the difference is that we start to pull in the winds from the southwest, much milder perhaps, as we end November and begin December and begin the winter of 2019-2020 on a relatively mild note. That's 4 weeks away. It takes up to week 4 for the CFS to get us back to milder conditions. Before then, looking generally cold and unsettled. That's the way the shorter range is as well. It looks as though next week we will start to pull in more in the way of easterly winds. They're not going to be cold enough to bring widespread snow. They'll just bring lots of heavy cold November rain and be pretty grim and miserable. But as I say, if we keep these easterlies going further and further into November, then they will start to get colder with time. And if we're still getting easterlies in the final week of November, we may start to see something a little bit more widespread of a wintry flavour happening, who knows. Right, so that's it for your videos for today. Tomorrow we'll be back with a 5-day forecast. We'll also have another week to 10-day video update as well tomorrow, and no doubt we'll bring you up to date with all of the latest developments in the stratosphere. Although I have to say, even without a sudden stratospheric warming, we are doing pretty well at the moment for you know, blocking and suddenly tracking jet streams and these abnormal weather patterns. It's all happening without any sort of sudden stratospheric warming. So we're doing pretty well, I think, in terms of what weather patterns are showing at the moment from a colder and more blocked perspective. But we will bring you an update tomorrow with what's happening in the stratosphere as well. Right, that's all for now, though, and thanks for watching.